Hey everyone, welcome to Be HEALTHistic. Today in the show, my dad and I are bringing you an all-new episode in our Pulse Check series, where we discuss trending health topics and share with our listeners what you should know right now. We often talk on the show about how the lifestyle choices we make each day have a huge impact on our physical and emotional health. Today, we're going to delve into some interesting new articles and studies that reinforce the importance of making healthy lifestyle choices.
Welcome to Be HEALTHistic, the podcast that's more than just health and wellness information. It's here to help you explore your options across traditional and natural medicine so that you can make informed decisions for you and your family. This podcast illuminates the whole story about holistic health by providing access to the expertise of Drs. Steve and Drew Sinatra, who together have decades of integrative health experience. Be HEALTHistic is powered by our friends at Healthy Directions. Now, let's join our hosts.
Hi, folks. If you like what you hear today and you want to listen to future conversations on all things integrative and holistic health, subscribe to our podcast at BeHealthisticPodcast.com. Also, check out and subscribe to the Healthy Directions YouTube channel, which features video versions of our episodes plus extra videos you won't want to miss. And finally, we have more with me, Dr. Drew Sinatra, my dad, Dr. Steve Sinatra, and other health experts at healthydirections.com. All right, the first topic is it's about the heart, and it's a drink a day may raise AFib risk. So this came out of the European Heart Journal, and these European researchers looked at 100,000 adults that were free of AFib, so no prior history of atrial fibrillation, and they basically followed them for 14 years. And what they found was that if these people had one drink per day, it raised their risk of developing AFib by 16%. And if they had more drinks per day, like 2 drinks, the risk went up to 36%. And if they had 3 drinks or more per day, it went up to 52% risk of developing AFib. So that's pretty significant. And that goes against what we've been taught for so long, and that maybe a drink a day might be heart healthy.
Well, it depends. If it's red wine, yes, because the red wine contains, resveratrol, a lot of polyphenols that prevents the oxidation of LDL. And, that's why the French paradox is so unusual, because the average French cholesterol is 275, but they got the lowest incidence of, heart disease in Western Europe. But this journal article, you say it went on for 17 years or so?
14 years 14 they followed.
Years, yeah, and it was published when, Drew?
I don't know when it was published. It was recently. I can look that up. It was
recently published. See, what I'm thinking about is this. Everything is sort of, there's synergism going on. And look, in the age of this day and age of electromagnetics and computers and cordless phones and cellular phones, et cetera, this electromagnetic soup that we live in, I think is contributing to the, 1, 2, or 3 drinks a day. And I'll tell you why. As a heart specialist, we are very privy to the holiday heart syndrome. I mean, heart specialists, doesn't make a difference where you live. We knew that during the holidays, from Thanksgiving to New Year's Day, that we would see more cardiac arrhythmias, more atrial fibrillation. And that's the time when people are drinking more. They're going to parties, they're taking more alcohol, et cetera, et cetera. And we know that alcohol lowers the arrhythmia threshold, where, it's just incredible. So I guess if this study was published this year, in January, that means that, hey, look, there's got to be a contributing factor. So I have a feeling, maybe the authors didn't mention it, but there's other extenuating factors. And not only is alcohol, not only can that render you more towards arrhythmias, 1, 2, or 3 drinks a day, but it may be worse in the presence of electromagnetic fields.
Absolutely.
I can tell you, I've been getting calls from my colleagues, where all of a sudden they got a cordless phone or a DECT phone or something like that, and the atrial fibrillation has occurred in the house, or meters are put outside the house. Those meters, and driving the EMF in, and they got atrial fibrillation. So anyway, I think there's a connection between the two, and I hope our listeners that if they do more than 3 drinks a day, that they watch their EMF exposure as well. That's my bottom line on that.
That's a great point, Dad. And also too, reading this article, I was hopeful that they would mention what type of alcohol would lead to the incidence of AFib development, and apparently it's all forms of alcohol. So hard alcohol, beer, wine. And I was thinking in my head that maybe they'd find out that wine would be a contributing factor. I know resveratrol is great, but I don't know about you, Dad, but in my practice, I hear about people having insomnia and heart palpitations and pounding heart late at night after they've had a glass of wine. That's like the number one alcohol association that I see is red wine, not sleeping well, and heart palpitations at night. So I was curious to see if red wine would come up, but it didn't.
Well, the other thing too is, in California, if they're drinking a lot of California wines, I always worry about insecticides, pesticides, heavy metals, things like that. One thing about your brother Step, he's involved in organic wines. And I think organic wines bring something to the table because not only are you getting lower sulfites and with the biogenome explosion, we're finding all these people with, inborn errors of metabolism, especially during in that cystoscione sulfite pathway. So basically, if you're going to drink alcohol, I would say the cleaner the better. And if you can get organic, I would go with organic to lower it down a notch where you're not getting a lot of, excess, substances in your body that could cause harm over time.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also the researchers too, before we move on to the next subject, they also said that one possible mechanism for this is really that alcohol activates the fight or flight response, right? So, they were saying that the heart may become electrically unstable from consuming alcohol. I thought that was a pretty interesting piece there.
No, it can happen. Let's face it. If you down a bottle of alcohol or, a case of beer, you might be so drunk that your sympathetic nervous system doesn't even act. But your point is well taken. Just a couple of drinks.
Yep.
That's not going to tone down the sympathetic nervous system. It may in some people, but it could have the reverse effect, because remember, alcohol is sugar, and sugar, will drive the sympathetic nervous system even higher because of the insulin relationships and the epinephrine and adrenaline relationships. It's a complex biochemical pathway, but it can happen.
Yeah. And lastly, I don't want to talk about this too much, of course, but really what you said from the beginning too, Dad, there's other variables that could be present. So we need to take into mind too that with studies, sometimes one study will show this, another study will show this, 5 years later, it shows the opposite effect. So things change with research all the time. And so this is just one study, but I think it is an important study to discuss because perhaps drinking one drink a day isn't as good for our heart as we've been led to believe.
Agreed.
Okay. Let's move on to topic number 2. And this is an avocado per day may help improve gut health. And this came out of the Journal of Nutrition. And what they did was they looked at overweight and obese subjects, and they gave them isocaloric meals, which means the same calories. This is in the experimental group versus the control group. And in the experimental group, they included 1 avocado per day. And essentially what they found was that those who had 1 avocado per day, they had an increased abundance of gut microbes that break down gut fiber and that produce metabolites, which supports gut health. And also they noticed an increase in diversity of the gut microbiota, which is really what we're searching for when it comes to foods or supplements or whatever, in terms of a health favorable effect.
Oh, well said. And, you're the gut microbiome expert. And, to me, that was new knowledge about avocado. I've been privy to the cardiovascular, advantages of avocado. It's a monounsaturated fat. You don't get an insulin response. It contains a lot of flavonoids and carotenoids. And potassium. Yeah, I just love avocado. In fact, I'm in the group of people, and I would say that a lot of my cardiological colleagues, they ingest avocados like I do on almost on a daily basis. I would say, Drew, I have avocado at least 6 out of 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And you're privy to the salad that I make. I did videos on this, but you know how hard it is to get 9 fresh fruits and vegetables a day?
Yeah, especially in the wintertime.
If you do the Sinatra salad, right? I make this salad 6 out of 7 days a week. It's amazing. But avocado is part of it, right? Mm-hmm. I use lettuce. I certainly used, and I get this mixture of cabbage and kale and, a a little bit of broccoli. And then I add the berries, blackberries, blueberries. I don't add strawberries unless they're organic, because those are the top three that are sprayed. And basically I use raspberries as well. And I add onion, because onion is just incredible. It's an incredible healer. And sometimes I'll chop up some even garlic. So at the end of the day, I have 9 fresh fruits and vegetables in the salad. I top it off with a little olive oil, which is the secret sauce of the Mediterranean diet. And we talked about changing pro-inflammatory genes. And we talked about, the Mediterranean basin having more than 100-year-old people in the world. Mm-hmm. If you look at the health benefits of avocado and all the berries thrown in, it makes a perfect salad. And it's one way to get 9 fresh fruits and vegetables a day. And avocado is the kingpin of that salad.
Oh, I want to eat some of that salad for lunch right now, Dad. Now, Dad, I don't know if you knew this, and perhaps you did, but the authors of the article said that there's 12 grams of fiber per avocado. I mean, I knew that there was fiber in avocado. I didn't know there was 12 grams of fiber per avocado.
Well, I thought it was 6 to 12. If it depends. We have the Haas avocado, and then we have these bigger avocados actually in Florida. And I'm just wondering what particular avocado they were talking about. The other good thing about avocados is this is one fruit that doesn't have to be organic. I mean, I prefer to buy organic all the time. But, if people want to save a little money at the supermarket, this is one fruit they can get that doesn't have to be organic.
Yeah, and, we should mention too, Dad, other let's call them prebiotic foods, right? Which are foods that help support a healthy microbiome. And you mentioned one of those, which is onions already. And of course, garlic is always part of the Sinatra dinner or lunch. And leeks are good, asparagus, dandelion greens, and also one of your favorites, Jerusalem artichoke.
Yep, they're all good. And don't forget sauerkraut as well.
And sauerkraut,
sauerkraut will, feed not only your probiotics, but your prebiotics as well. I mean, it's an amazing vegetable to have, and it really detoxifies the gut. And being a gut expert, all those things I'm sure you do at least some of those on a weekly basis or daily basis.
I try to, as much as I can. All right, let's move on to topic number 3 here. This is the life-changing benefits of pets, the magical healing of a pet. And I know we're going to have a lot to talk about this one, Dad.
Yeah, in fact, I did a radio show yesterday, radio TV show last night. And the people that sponsored the show were from Baltimore. And that's where Jim Lynch grew up. And Jim Lynch, I met him 30 years ago. He wrote The Broken Heart. Uh-huh. And he was the one, he's a PhD. And he was the one that really, enlightened me, so to speak, about the healing power of pets. I mean, he was amazing. And remember, when you grew up in my house, you always had a dog. I mean, we had Charlie, we had Chewy, we had
multiple dogs,
we had cows, we had Labrador retrievers. I had Chesapeake Bay retrievers. I mean, I've had dogs all my life. And as a heart specialist, the data is there, Drew. I mean, I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again in case people haven't heard it. But if you have a heart attack, whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter. And if you come home to a lonely house, nobody's there, or you come home to where there's a lot of argumentative behavior in the house and you're fighting with your spouse, this increases the incidence of death by 400%. I mean, think about that. I mean, that's like unbelievable. Yeah. Because when you have a heart attack, the first year, you're in a vulnerable situation. You're prone to arrhythmias. You can be prone to heart failure if the heart attack was extensive. So you have to really be careful. But the data showed that if you come home to a loving dog that loves you unconditionally, and I've mentioned this at loads of conferences, and if you take that energy in, from a loving pet, this unconditional love is just awesome. Yeah. I mean, I just saw an anti-aging doctor here today, here in Essex, and when I walked into his office, he had 3 dogs. Reminded me, my office, when I used to bring my dogs, and I said to his wife, I said, can I see the dogs? And she says, are you serious? Because I heard them barking. And she says, yeah. They came running out of the room. They were wagging their tails. I was, petting them all and everything else. And again, it just opens your heart. So pets are incredible.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Dad, you mentioned coming home to a lonely house, and that's really what this article was about. Was a woman who she'd had PTSD, abuse in her past, and she was feeling incredibly lonely from the pandemic. She was isolated from her friends, her family, and she wasn't feeling like she was connecting on Zoom or even. It was brilliant. I'm going to read a quote actually that she talked about when walking through a grocery store. She said, "Some days, even though I walked in the same vicinity as other people at the supermarket or post office, I felt as if I existed behind a thick pane of glass, an impenetrable partition separating me from the world." And I think we can all relate to that, where during this pandemic, you go to a grocery store and you're just everyone's walking around like a zombie in a sense of just like really minding their own business and with their mask on, and you don't really connect to anyone, even though you're sort of in contact with everyone. You're not connecting. And I think everyone's just craving this deeper connection with humans right now. And of course, pets are the great solution for this, because we can bring them into our homes, and like you said, we can pet them, and they bring a lot of love and joy and happiness into our life. And I think that I encourage everyone to read this article that this author wrote, because she was a brilliant writer. I really got a lot out of it, in fact. And I'm all about what you said, Dad, in terms of having, a cat, a dog, whatever it is, an animal that you come home to that you can unconditionally love. And it's fantastic.
No, it's great. And you had Ruby there for a good part of your life. And I'll never forget the day we went clothes shopping when we saw those dogs come out, and you fell in love with that type of dog. It was amazing. You just saw it and bingo, you wanted the Ruby.
Exactly.
So, it's great. And, Drew, one of the things I did as a heart specialist frequently, when I would see a husband or a wife and, a spouse would lose their partner after 30, 40, 50 years from a heart attack or a sudden death. And if the kids were dispersed all over the world and they were lonely, I used to sit in the office, and sometimes I would have Chewy with me, and I would always recommend a dog to these people. I said, just go to a BioE home or a shelter and just, let the dog choose you. I used to always say, Don't you choose the dog, let the dog choose you. And if you felt you had a heart connection, go with it.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, Drew, so many times these patients would come back, 3 months, 6 months, a year later and say, "Doc, I followed your advice and I'm so happy right now." I mean, I heard that so many times. And, our four-legged friends can do, wonders for our heart and our life. There's no doubt about it.
Well, I looked up some other studies too, because I was really curious around the potential heart benefits of having a pet, and they can improve heart rate variability.
Yes.
They can reduce heart rate and blood pressure, in fact.
The science on this, the mere petting of a dog could lower your blood pressure. Think about that.
Yep.
That's good stuff.
And one more thing I should mention too is I read this phenomenal article, Dad. I'll send it to you, actually. It's a whole compilation of this relationship between human-animal interactions and the health benefits, going outside the heart as well. And they are saying that a lot of the benefits are actually due to oxytocin release that you get from petting a dog, right? Or coming up and hugging that dog, or being in the presence of that dog or other animal. And so I thought that was really fascinating about that oxytocin release, which everyone knows is really the hormone that's released when you hug someone, or, breastfeeding women have released oxytocin, or during sex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hormone of connection.
Connection.
The other thing too is, I have a suspicion that if the love is felt internally, that maybe phenylethylamine might be released from the brain as well. And that's the love hormone. So the connectedness hormone of oxytocin and the love hormone of phenylethylamine. Dark chocolate, for example. Dark chocolate can elicit phenylethylamine. That's why small pieces of dark chocolate, on an every other day basis, or a little bit after, your dinner meal is a wonderful way of, taking in bioflavonoids. And I love dark chocolate. I mean, it's one of the things we just got on Vervana. I found a 72% dark chocolate organic. That's absolutely outstanding. I mean, I've been tasting these dark chocolates from all over the world. You wouldn't believe it. Mexico, Italy, Peru. I mean, I've been tasting these things, and now I finally found one that I really like, the 72% dark cocoa, because again, in small quantities, you don't want to eat a whole chocolate bar in one serving. A couple of squares is all you need to give your body not only a nutritional value, but again, you especially in this day and age, oxytocin and phenylethylamine are the hormones that we need to connect, because how can you connect with somebody when you're wearing a mask? And I really fear this in our young children. Our young children, as a psychotherapist, I really fear that if young children see people wearing a mask, that's going to create suspicion in them. Yeah. And we don't want young children to grow up with the energy of suspicion, because that in itself is not a good thing. So the more you can show your kids or bring them to places where you don't need masks, this is a very important activity, because something's got to give if people are wearing masks all the time, and our younger children are going to suffer the most.
No, and I don't want to talk about this too much, of course, because we're on the topic of pets and health. But your dad absolutely correct about that. I mean, I've been reading all these articles about the potential issues down the road with children in terms of not trusting other people, and so that is a huge factor moving forward. So I guess a takeaway for this article is get a pet if you're feeling lonely during the pandemic, or eat more chocolate. All right. Well, the last topic we're going to be discussing is an afternoon nap is linked to better mental acuity or agility. So this came out of the British Medical Journal, and this is kind of funny. They defined an afternoon nap as a period of at least 5 consecutive minutes of sleep, but no longer than 2 hours, and that's taken after lunch. Now, I thought 5 minutes was kind of funny, because I mean, maybe I've seen you sleep for maybe 5-10 minutes, Dad, but that's not that much of a nap time.
That's a power nap.
It's a power nap. But what they did is they essentially interviewed these people, and they found that those that did take a nap, according to those parameters, they had improved visual spatial skills, working memory, attention span, problem solving, and verbal fluency. So a lot of cognitive factors were improved.
It makes sense, because you're giving your autonomic nervous system a rest. Yep. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense to me. In fact, when I wrote my book, Heartbreak and Heart Disease, I was studying different cultures for heart attack. And when I came across the island of Crete, in the Mediterranean, there wasn't a heart attack reported over a 10-year period. Now, think about that. Just think about that. On the whole island, there were a few thousand inhabitants, but there wasn't a heart attack recorded. And if you look at what people do in the island of Crete, they would have their biggest meal during the afternoon. And after their biggest meal, they would either play games or, like chess or checkers, or, go back or take a nap. And basically, again, it just made a lot of sense, because you're toning down the autonomic nervous system. And whenever you do that, you're giving ammunition in preserving your heart. So that's the key.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny, because I look at you and you're able to nap at the drop of a hat. I mean, you can fall asleep.
You see me sleep on stones when I was surf casting.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think the beautiful thing is that everyone's so different, because I need complete quiet. Like, I can't have any noise in the background. There's no chance of me napping. And so what I do is I throw on an air purifier for some white noise, and I try to, get like a half hour, 45-minute nap in. But that's pretty rare, especially with 3 kids these days. It's kind of really difficult to get in a nap. But
well, Drew, I grew up in the days of the Iron Men, when, I'm going to be 75 in a few months. And when I was an intern in medicine, oh gosh, that's like over 50 years ago. We had a night call every other night on some rotations, and every third night on others. And I'll never forget the interns a year or two before me, they were on call every other night. Now think of that. At least I had every third night for a few months. And they used to look at us, and they thought we were wimps. They said, you guys had it so easy. You know what I mean? And, that's how I learned to sleep. I can sleep anywhere when I'm tired. I don't care whether it's in the middle of a traffic jam and horns are going low, because I learned that when I was at a very young age, and I was up all night, all the time. I mean, 36 hours straight with no sleep at all. Yeah. But if I was able to catch 5 or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, oh my God, it would really supercharge me. So
that's efficiency right there.
Worked out, I got to tell you.
Yeah. Well, the takeaway of this article is really, if you find that you want to improve your mental agility, right, your cognition, focus, everything, you might want to take a nap every day or every other day. That's okay.
Yeah, and I would take it a step further. I would say listen to your body.
Listen to your body.
Many people that fight off naps, because for whatever reason, they need to perform, they need to do this, and I don't care what it is, but just listen to your body. If your body wants to let down and be tired, now with this new research, there's a dividend in taking a nap as well.
Dad, it's funny because I feel like in our culture, you can think of yourself, at least judgment-wise, of being lazy if you're taking a nap, in a sense, right? Because, you should be getting done, you should be getting work done, be more productive. But you're absolutely correct. Give yourself that time if your body's asking for it, because ultimately it's going to help you.
Right.
All right, Dad. Well, as we wrap up our show here, we're going to get to our wellness wisdom. So one of the other trending items that we came across was something that you talk about all the time, which is how our mental health can directly impact our heart health. And now more than more, the medical literature is confirming that this is the case. According to a recent statement published in the journal Circulation, there is evidence of biological, behavioral, and psychological pathways that link mental health to heart disease. So, Dad, do you want to share some advice with the listeners on what they can do here about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that cardiologists, I think, are really privy to, because we know that there's conversations between the brain and the heart. They're going this way all the time. Now, the heart has the vagal nerve and everything else, and there are direct hormonal connections between the brain and the heart. And a lot of people think that the brain rules the body. Nuh-uh. As a heart specialist, the heart rules the body. And whenever you do good things for your heart, you'll be doing good things for your brain. And the reverse is true. And one of the things is, if you can get into your heart feelings, in other words, if you can, like, suppose you're feeling sad, and you're having a lot, especially during this pandemic, there's suicides going on. People are feeling trapped. There's panic going on. There's depression going on. And my advice to anybody during this pandemic, especially if they're locked up and they're lonely, if they're feeling sadness, and if they give themselves permission to cry, this is so important. And I know I've mentioned this before in other podcasts, but it's so important because we all have heartbreak during these situations. And if you can let down in your tears, then your heartbreak won't lead to heart disease. Do you remember when you were 8 years old, when we saw the movie Hoosiers? Do you remember that?
Of course, yes.
Now, when you were 8 years old, how old was I? I was in my 40s, maybe.
You're 42.
I was 42. That's right. Yeah. And I was in a Gestalt training program 10 years before that, and a bioenergetic training program. And then when I published that paper I did in Connecticut Medicine, showing that men who don't cry get heart disease, because we tested urines and adrenaline and cortisol, and we did a workshop and blah, blah, blah. That was one of my issues, Drew. That was one of my issues. So I was seeing Dr. Alexander Lowen, and I was seeing John Parakis, and I was seeing the world's best therapist. I became a certified bioenergetic therapist, but I couldn't cry. And basically, no matter how hard these therapists worked on me, but guess what? Remember during that movie, it was like a David and Goliath movie where the basketball team from Indiana, they only had 6 guys, and they took on the Indiana state champs. They had maybe 25 or 30 guys on that basketball team. And it just reminded me of, my days of high school wrestling and stuff like that. And that movie touched me. And I remember you sitting next to me, and I was crying, and you said to me, "Dad, you're crying." And I said, "Drew, I need to do this right now. I need to release my heartbreak." And after that, I saw the movie 5 times. I saw the movie 5 times, and I was able to discharge. And that's the point I want to tell our audience. We all have locked internal sadness. A lot of it comes from unresolved issues in childhood. You can have a death of a parent, an early divorce. You can be sick. You can lose a dog. I remember I had a heartbreaking experience when I was 12 years old, when my dog was put to sleep. I still haven't gotten over it, Drew. And I have to tell you, when you stuff sadness, you stuff tears, you are actually increasing the heartbreak, phenomena in your body. And the only way to release it is to cry. And I have to tell you that one of the reasons why a lot of corporate women right now are getting heart disease is that, and I believe this strongly, that one of the greatest assets a woman has is that, she can let down easier than a man and let down in the sadness. Women also have greater intuition than men, where they rely more on their right brain. But when women get into the workplace and if they get higher levels like CEOs, et cetera, if they turn off their right brain and become more left brain oriented because they have to perform and, improve the bottom line, et cetera. And if they shut off their femininity with tears, that is a dangerous cause for heart disease. Unfortunately, we're seeing more heart attack in women today than we did over 20 years ago. And that really bothers me because, women are always worried about breast cancer. I'm going to get breast cancer. Now, 1 in 3 women die of heart disease. 1 in 8 to 9 women perish from breast cancer, but it's heart disease that's going to get women. So my plea to women is, yes, there's conversations between the brain and the heart. And basically, don't forget that your inner heart feelings are the most important thing in your body.
Oh, that's beautiful, Dad. A couple comments I want to make here around that. You mentioned discharge, and I think crying is just such a fantastic way to discharge. Have you also mentioned laughter, like deep belly laughter is another way to discharge? Oh yeah,
belly laughter is great. I remember I did a piece of work with Dr. Alexander Lowen, and he bent me over this bioenergetic stool, and he's tickling my chest, right? He's putting pressure on. Actually, he was working on my diaphragm to free up energy in my diaphragam.
Yeah.
To get me to breathe better. And because he believed that breathing was the aspect of the type A behavior pattern. He was absolutely right.
He's correct.
I had dinner with Maya Friedman, and we flipped a coin on this about buying a bottle of wine. And thank God I won because he bought a nice bottle of wine. But I'll never forget that he was absolutely right about, breathing and the coronary prone personality. Lowen took it a step further, and he worked on people's diaphragms and chest. And I'll never forget it. He started to tickle me, and I was laughing. And he says, "You think this is funny, huh?" and I almost got to the point where I was laughing so hard I almost cried.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I got into my head, where I verbalized it to him, it took it away. And that's what happens with people. Once you have a body emotion that's overwhelms you, go with it. Don't go into your head and think about it. Once you go into your head and think about it, now you become disconnected. You cut off the heart-brain hotline, and you go into your head. So the most important thing is, and I hope that people take this in, when people have sadness or if they cry, please don't ask yourself, I shouldn't be crying. I'm a happy person. I have a good job. I have a good spouse. My kids are great. No, do not go into your head. Just if the feeling of sadness comes up, give yourself permission to cry. It's the healthiest thing you can do for your heart and longevity.
And Dad, I gotta thank you because yes, I did watch you when I was 8 years old as you cried during Hoosiers. And of course, I watched Hoosiers again. I think it was like a decade ago, and I was just bawling. I was crying so hard during. Oh yeah, I mean, what an amazing movie! And then in other movies too, like Rudy. Whenever I see Rudy and they're chanting Rudy to come on the field near the end. I mean, oh my gosh, I just start pouring tears, and of course I feel great after I shed some tears like that. And so I think I learned from you how to cry during movies.
Oh no, that's great. That's great. That's awesome.
That's our show for today, folks. If you have a question or an idea for a show topic, please send us an email or share a post with us on Facebook. And remember, if you like what you heard today and you want to be an active member of the Be HEALTHistic community, subscribe to our podcast at BeHealthisticPodcast.com or on Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your favorites. You can also find more great content and information from us and the Healthy Directions team at healthydirections.com. I'm Dr. Drew Sinatra.
And I'm Dr. Steve Sinatra.
And this is Be HEALTHistic.
Thanks for listening to Be HEALTHistic, powered by our friends at Healthy Directions with Doctors Drew and Steve Sinatra. See you next time.